I was on my way to the meeting regarding my late husband's inheritance. When I got into the car, a homeless man ran up and screamed, "Ma'am, do not start that car, your daughter-in-law." My blood ran cold. But when I arrived at the meeting, that leech fainted when she saw me. I was just about to turn the ignition when I heard it. A heartbreaking scream that cut through the morning like a knife. "Ma'am, do not start that car." My hands froze on the steering wheel. My heart pounded in my chest with such force that I thought it would burst right out. I turned my head and saw him, a dirty, disheveled man with torn clothes and greasy hair stuck to his forehead. He was running toward me with his arms outstretched as if trying to stop a tragedy. "Your daughter-in-law was here last night." I felt the air escape from my lungs. Audrey. My daughter-in-law Audrey had been near my car. In the middle of the night, the man slapped the window with his open palms, leaving dirt stains on the glass. His eyes, sunken in red, looked at me with an urgency I could not ignore. It was not the look of a crazy person. It was the look of someone who had seen something terrible. "Do not turn it on, please. I saw what she did." I rolled down the window just a few inches, my breathing ragged. What did you see?" I whispered. He took a step back, trembling. "She and a man in a suit opened the hood. They were carrying a small bag. I was there on the corner. Nobody sees me. But I see everything." My fingers let go of the keys. They fell into my lap with a metallic clatter that sounded too loud in the silence that followed. Everything started to make sense in a horrible way. James, my husband, had died just 3 weeks ago. A massive heart attack, the doctors had said. But I knew something did not add up. James was strong. He took care of his health. He did not drink. He did not smoke. And suddenly, he faded away in the hospital, surrounded only by Audrey. Only by her. And now this man, this stranger who lived in the shadows of the city, was telling me that my daughter-in-law had tampered with my car in the middle of the night. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked him, my voice still broken. He looked down. "Because your husband was good to me once. He gave me food when everyone else spit on me. And last night I dreamed of him. He told me to take care of you." My eyes filled with tears. James, always so noble, always so generous, and now even from wherever he was trying to protect me. I got out of the car with my legs shaking. The morning sun hit my face, but I felt cold, a cold that came from deep inside. I walked to the front of the car. I opened the hood with clumsy hands, and what I saw took my breath away. A wire was cut, not broken, cut with precision. And next to the engine, hidden between the metal parts, was a small plastic bag with a clear liquid that smelled like gasoline. My entire body began to tremble. If I had started that engine, if I had pressed the gas pedal, everything would have exploded. I would have exploded. I let myself fall against the car, my knees weak and my vision blurry. Audrey wanted to kill me. My own daughter-in-law, the woman who hugged my son every night, the one who smiled at me at every family dinner, the one who called me Mom Evelyn with that sweet and fake voice, had tried to murder me. And the worst part of all, I had to go to the lawyer's office that same morning, to the reading of James's last will and testament. She would be there smiling, waiting, believing that I would never arrive. Welcome back to the channel. If this story hooked you from the first word, make sure to subscribe to follow our family of stories that will make you feel, reflect, and never forget. I slammed the hood shut with force, wiped my tears with the back of my hand, and looked at the man who had just saved my life. "What is your name?" I asked him. "Everyone calls me Skinny, ma'am." "Thank you, Skinny. Thank you for listening to James." I took out all the cash I had in my purse. It was not much, but it was something. I put it in his hands. "I will be back soon, and when I return, I want you to tell me everything you saw, every single detail." He nodded, clutching the bills against his chest as if they were gold. I called a taxi. I was not going to risk my life in that car. Not yet. But as the taxi moved through the city streets, a cold, hard certainty settled in my chest. Audrey had made a mistake. She'd underestimated me. She thought I was just an old widow, weak, easy to eliminate. But she was wrong, because now I knew. And a woman who knows is dangerous. The lawyer's office was waiting for me. My daughter-in-law was waiting for me. And I was going to walk through that door as if nothing had happened. But inside, I was already at war. And this time, I was not going to lose. The waiting room at the firm smelled of old paper and reheated coffee. The beige walls, the paintings with gold frames, the mahogany desk, everything seemed designed to give solemnity to the moment. But I did not feel solemnity. I felt nausea. Audrey was already there when I arrived, sitting next to my son Michael with her legs crossed and that perfect smile she always used as a mask. She was wearing a tight black dress, discreet but elegant. Her hair was pulled back in a low ponytail, pearl earrings, flawless makeup. The perfect widow, or that is what she wanted to appear to be. When she saw me enter, her eyes opened just a fraction of a second more than normal. It was an almost imperceptible gesture, but I saw it. I saw the surprise. I saw the fear. She did not expect me to arrive alive. Mom. Michael stood up immediately and hugged me. His body was tense, heavy. My son had aged 10 years in 3 weeks. He had deep circles under his eyes and unkempt beard, and when he squeezed me against his chest, I felt him trembling. "My love," I whispered, rubbing his back. "I am here." Audrey also stood up. She walked toward me with measured steps, almost theatrical, and hugged me with that fake warmth that already turned my stomach. "Mom Evelyn," she said with a soft voice, "it is so good that you made it. We were worried." Her hands on my back were cold, her perfume too sweet. And when she pulled away, our eyes met for an instant that was too long. I did not look away. She did. "Well, let's begin." Mr. Roberts, a man in his 60s with thick glasses and a blue tie, opened a leather folder on the desk. "I know this is a difficult time for the family, but it is necessary to fulfill the last wishes of Mr. James." Beside him, the young associate attorney, Mr. Solis, was taking notes in silence from the corner. I sat in front of the desk, Michael to my right, Audrey to my left, so close I could hear her breathing. The attorney began to read. At first, everything seemed normal. The main house remained in my name, the personal bank accounts as well. Some land out in the country would be divided between Michael and his sister Sophia, who lived in Chicago and could not come. But then came the part that made me feel as if the floor were opening up beneath my feet. And in accordance with the testamentary disposition modified on August 12th of last year. The attorney paused and looked at me over his glasses. Yes, the properties located in the downtown district, the warehouse in the industrial park, and the apartment in the Upper East Side remain in the name of Mrs. Audrey Salazar. Silence. A silence so heavy I could feel it crushing my chest. "What?" My voice came out barely as a whisper. The attorney cleared his throat uncomfortably. "It was a modification made by Mr. James 3 months before his passing, signed before a notary. Here is the documentation." He pushed some papers toward me. My hands were shaking so much I could barely hold them. There it was. James's signature, his name, the date. But something did not add up. James would never have hidden something like this from me. He would never have left properties worth millions of dollars in Audrey's name without even mentioning it to me. We were a team. We always were. Mom-Dad mentioned it to me. Audrey had been a great support for him in the last few months, that he wanted to secure our future. I turned toward my son with my heart torn apart. "And you knew, and you didn't tell me anything." Michael looked down. "I didn't want to worry you. I thought Dad would tell you when the time was right." Audrey put her hand over Michael's hand, a possessive gesture, marking territory. "Evelyn, I know this is a surprise," she said with that controlled voice, almost compassionate. "But James trusted me. He knew that I would take care of Michael, and of you too, of course." Her words were poison wrapped in velvet. I stood up from the chair. My legs felt heavy, as if I were carrying stones. I need air. I walked out of the room before anyone could stop me. The hallway of the law firm was narrow and cold. I leaned against the wall, trying to breathe, trying to think. 3 properties, millions of dollars in Audrey's name. And she had tried to kill me that very morning. Why? What else did she want? What else did she have left to take from me? The answer came clear, brutal. She wanted everything. I heard footsteps behind me. It was Audrey. She came out of the room with that unbreakable smile, as if nothing in the world could touch her. Evelyn, I understand that you are surprised, but this is what James wanted. We should respect his will, don't you think? I stared at her. Every muscle in my body was tense. Were you near my car last night? Her smile wavered. Just for a second, but it was enough. What? No. Why would I? Someone saw you. Her eyes hardened. The mask was beginning to crack. I don't know what you are talking about, Evelyn. Maybe the stress is affecting you. You should rest. She turned around and went back into the room, leaving me alone in that frozen hallway. But something had changed in me. I was no longer afraid. I had clarity. Audrey had planned all of this. She manipulated James. She forged documents. She tried to kill me. And now in front of an attorney, she was collecting her loot. But she made a mistake. She left me alive. And I was going to use every second I had left to unmask her betrayal, recover what was mine, and make her pay for what she did to James. I returned to the room. I sat down. I signed what I had to sign. But inside, the war had already begun. And this time I was going to fight until the end. The following days were a silent nightmare. I went back to my house, that house that James and I built together 30 years ago, and everything seemed different. The walls no longer protected me. The furniture, the paintings, the framed photos, everything seemed to whisper the same question to me. What really happened? I could not sleep. I could not eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the bag of gasoline hidden in the engine. I saw Audrey's smile. I heard her sweet and poisonous voice. And then the rumors started. It was at the grocery store where I heard it for the first time. I had gone early to buy vegetables, trying to maintain some normalcy in my shattered life. Mrs. Patterson, who sells peppers and tomatoes at the corner stall, greeted me with that uncomfortable smile people put on when they do not know what to say. Mrs. Evelyn, how nice to see you. How are you? I am here, Mrs. Patterson, taking it day by day. She nodded, but her gaze avoided mine. She arranged the tomatoes on the tray, nervous. Listen, is it true that... She stopped. She swallowed hard. No, sorry, I shouldn't meddle. Something in my chest tightened. What is true, Mrs. Patterson? She lowered her voice, leaning in just a little. They say that Mr. James didn't die of a heart attack. That something strange happened at the hospital. I froze. The bag of vegetables almost fell from my hands. Who says that? It's just that people talk, Mrs. Evelyn. They say your daughter-in-law went to the hospital every day, alone. And that the doctors never could explain exactly what happened. A man so healthy, just like that. She made a gesture with her hand as if something vanished into thin air. I did not answer her. I took my things, and left there, with my heart beating in my ears. But it didn't end there. At the pharmacy, the cashier looked at me with pity. At the bakery, 2 ladies stopped talking as soon as I walked in. And on the corner of my street, I saw the neighbor from number 12, Mrs. Campbell, chatting with another woman. When they saw me pass, they lowered their voices and turned away, but I managed to hear. They say the daughter-in-law already kept 3 properties. Poor Mrs. Evelyn, and she treated her like a daughter. Every word was a stab wound. It wasn't just that Audrey had betrayed me. It was that the whole neighborhood knew, or at least they suspected it. And I had no proof. Only intuitions. Only a huge void where my trust used to be. That night alone in the house, I sat at James's desk. It was an antique piece of dark wood with deep drawers and a desk lamp he used to review contracts. I opened the first drawer: papers, old bills, electric receipts. The second drawer: notebooks, pens, a photo of us in Florida smiling under the sun. My eyes filled with tears. "James, what did they do to you?" I whispered. Then I saw something I hadn't noticed before. In the third drawer, all the way in the back, was a manila folder. It was hidden underneath some old architectural blueprints. I pulled it out with trembling hands. Inside were bank statements, but they weren't the ones I knew. It was an account I had never seen in the name of James and Audrey. I felt the world stop. Bank movements transfers $200,000 withdrawn in August, another $100,000 in September, and then just a week before James died, another transfer of $300,000. $800,000, in total $600, moved before his death, and $200 after, without my knowledge. I looked for the dates. I compared them with my calendar. All those transfers were made on days when I was away visiting my sister in Austin or on a spiritual retreat in the mountains. Audrey had waited for the perfect moment, and James, did James know, or had she deceived him too? My hands were shaking so much that the papers were wrinkling between my fingers. Then the phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated, but I answered. "Mrs. Evelyn Montes." "Yes, who is speaking?" "I am Dr. Vance. I worked at St. Raphael Hospital when your husband was admitted." My breath caught. "What do you need, Dr.?" There was a long pause, too long. "I need to speak with you in person. There is something that should have been investigated at the time, but no one wanted to listen to me." My heart pounded so hard I felt the pulse in my temples. "What are you talking about?" "About your husband's final hours, about what we found in his blood, and about who was with him when it all happened." I closed my eyes. The tears ran free, hot, furious. "Tell me where and when." "Tomorrow at 3 in the afternoon at the coffee shop across from the hospital." "Come alone." He hung up. I stayed there, sitting at James's desk with the bank statement scattered in front of me and the phone still in my hand. The rumors were true. Something horrible had happened and everyone knew it, but no one dared to say it out loud, least of all me, because I was not going to stay silent anymore. Tomorrow I would find out the truth, the whole truth. And if Audrey had killed my husband, if she had poisoned his last days of life to steal everything from me, then she would also have to pay. It didn't matter how long it took me. It didn't matter how much it hurt me. James deserved justice, and I was going to give it to him. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, remembering trying to find the exact moment when everything began to fall apart, the moment when Audrey stopped being the loving daughter-in-law and turned into this. And then I saw it clearly. It was 4 years ago. Michael arrived home one Sunday with her hanging onto his arm, smiling as if she had won the lottery. She was 28 years old, then he was 32. "Mom, Dad, I want to introduce you to someone very special." Audrey walked into our living room with confident steps, almost rehearsed. She was wearing a white dress with small flowers, her hair loose falling in perfect waves, over her shoulders, low heels, natural makeup, everything calculated to look innocent. "Nice to meet you, Mrs. Evelyn." She extended her hand with a warm smile. "Michael has told me so much about you." James was charmed from the first moment. "What a polite young lady." He told me later when they left. "And you can tell she loves our son." I didn't say anything, but something in my stomach wasn't calm. Maybe it was the way her eyes scanned the house when she entered, not with curiosity, but with evaluation, as if she were measuring every piece of furniture, every painting, every inch of our life. Maybe it was the way she touched the porcelain vase in the entryway and asked with that sweet voice, "Is this antique? It must be worth a fortune." Or maybe it was simply a mother's instinct, that uncomfortable prickle that tells you this person is not what they seem. But Michael was in love, and when a son is in love, we mothers become invisible. They got married 6 months later, a big expensive wedding that James and I paid for almost entirely. Audrey said her family couldn't contribute much because they came from a humble situation. We, of course, understood. Or that is what we believed. After the wedding, things changed little by little. So slowly that you almost don't notice. Like when a plant withers, it doesn't die all at once, it fades, leaf by leaf. First it was the family dinners. Audrey always had an excuse to arrive late or leave early. I have work. I have a headache. Michael and I have plans. Then she started to have an opinion on everything. Mother-in-law, don't you think this living room needs a renovation? It looks a little outdated. James, I've seen some incredible properties in the city. You should invest before prices go up more. Michael told me you have land in the country. Wouldn't it be better to sell it and put that money to work? She always talked about money, about investments, about properties. And James, who was a noble but trusting man, started to listen to her. She is smart, Evelyn, he would tell me. She has a vision for business. I tried to warn him, more than once. James, that girl, only talks about money. Doesn't that seem strange to you? He would laugh. You are exaggerating, my love. She just wants to help. But I wasn't exaggerating. I remember the day I found a credit card in James's jacket pocket, a card I didn't recognize. I checked it. It was in his name, but Audrey was the authorized user. Expenses, hundreds of thousands of dollars in clothes, restaurants, trips, all paid for by my husband. When I confronted him, James got uncomfortable. I lent her the card a couple of times for emergencies. Emergencies. I showed him the statement. Is a $5,000 handbag an emergency? Evelyn, please, she is our son's wife. What do you want me to do? Tell her no. That was the first time we fought about her, and it wasn't the last. Audrey began to visit James at his office. Just to ask for advice, Michael said. But I knew there was something else. I saw how my husband came home quieter and more distant every time. One day, I found him in his study with his head in his hands. What's wrong, my love? Nothing. I'm tired. James talked to me. He looked up. His eyes were tired, sad. I signed some papers that maybe I shouldn't have signed. My heart stopped. What papers? Audrey asked me to help her with an investment. She said it was urgent that Michael was worried about the future. I just wanted to help. How much? $200,000. I felt the floor opening under my feet. James, are you crazy? I know it was stupid. But she said she would pay it back, that it was only temporary. Well, of course, she never paid back anything. And when I tried to talk to Michael, he defended her. Mom, you are being unfair. Audrey is not like that. You don't know her like I do. Michael, open your eyes. That woman is using your father. Enough. His voice exploded in the room. You have always mistrusted her. Since day one, you know what Audrey was right. She said you would never accept seeing me happy. Those words broke me, because they weren't my son's words. They were her words coming out of his mouth. Audrey had poisoned him, not with substances, with ideas, with lies. With that terrible ability, some people have to make you doubt your own reality. And while I was losing my son, James was getting sick. It started with fatigue, then dizziness, then stomach pains that the doctors couldn't explain. It is stress, they said. Rest more. But I knew it wasn't stress, because every time Audrey visited him, James got worse. Until one day in the hospital, while I was out of town visiting my sick sister, James had a massive cardiac arrest, and the only person who was with him at that moment was Audrey. Now sitting on my bed with the cold sheets and the silent house, I understood everything. Audrey hadn't entered this family for love. She had entered to destroy us, and the worst part of all, she had succeeded. But there was still one thing she couldn't take from me, my will to fight. Tomorrow I would meet with Dr. Vance. Tomorrow I would know the truth about what happened in that hospital. And when I had the answers, Audrey would discover that she underestimated the wrong woman. Because a mother can forgive many things, but she will never, never forgive the one who took the love of her life. And I had just decided that forgiveness was no longer an option. The next morning, I woke up with an icy certainty in my chest. I needed proof. I needed something concrete, tangible that couldn't be ignored or dismissed as a widow's paranoia, something that even Michael couldn't deny, and that something was in my garage. I went downstairs, still in my robe with my hair in a messy braid. The sun was just starting to peek through the windows, dyeing everything a pale orange. The house smelled of stale coffee and silence. I made myself a cup of tea that I didn't drink. My hands were shaking too much. At 8 in the morning, I called Mr. Henderson. He had been James's trusted mechanic for more than 20 years, a man in his 60s with hands stained with grease and honesty that was bulletproof. If anyone could tell me the truth about what was in my car, it was him. Mrs. Evelyn. His voice on the other end of the line. "How are you? I am so sorry about Mr. James." "Thank you, Mr. Henderson. I need you to come to my house." "It is urgent." "Is something wrong with the car?" "I don't know." "That is what I need you to tell me." There was a pause. "I am on my way." He arrived half an hour later in his beat-up truck that smelled of burnt oil and cigarettes. He was carrying his toolbox and that serious expression he put on when things were important. "Show me the car, ma'am." I took him to the garage. My gray sedan was parked in the same spot where I left it after Skinny's scream. I hadn't touched it since then. I hadn't dared. Mr. Henderson crouched in front of the hood, opened it carefully, and for several minutes said nothing. He just checked, touched moved wires. His frown deepened more and more. "Good Lord," he murmured. My stomach contracted. "What is it?" He took a small flashlight from his pocket and shined it into the engine. Then he turned to me with an expression I had never seen on him. Pure fear. "Mrs. Evelyn, did you start this car after parking it here?" "No. Someone warned me not to do it." "Thank God." He wiped his hands on a dirty rag and signaled for me to come closer. "Come here, look at this." I approached, although every step was an effort. I didn't want to look, but I had to. Mr. Henderson pointed to a wire cut cleanly, almost surgically. "This is the wire that connects the ignition system to the fuel pump. It is cut, not broken." Cut with something sharp. A knife, probably. I felt my throat close up. And what does that mean? That someone wanted the car not to start immediately. That you would insist. That you would try several times. Why, he pulled something out with pliers. It was a plastic bag about 8 by 5 inches with a volatile mixture placed over the exhaust manifold. The ignition wire was severed with a blade. A setup compatible with secondary ignition and instant explosion. My breath stopped. What would have happened if I had insisted on starting it? Mr. Henderson looked me straight in the eye. The heat would have melted the bag. The liquid would have fallen onto the hot engine, and with the sparks from the starter... He paused. "It would have exploded, Mrs. Evelyn. You would have exploded..." My legs failed me. I had to lean against the garage wall not to fall. The world was spinning. "Are you sure? Completely? This is not an accident. This is not vandalism from some idiot kid. This is..." He swallowed hard. "Attempted murder." The words hung in the air, heavy as stones. Attempted murder. Someone had wanted to kill me. Someone had planned for me to burn to death inside my own car, in my own garage, with no witnesses, no escape. And that someone was Audrey. "Mr. Henderson." My voice came out like a broken whisper. "I need you to document all of this. Photos, videos, whatever is necessary." I was already thinking that. He took out his cell phone. "I am going to record everything, and then we should call the police." "No, not yet." He looked at me confused. "Mrs. Evelyn, this is serious. If someone tried to..." "I know. But I need more proof. I need this to be irrefutable because the person who did this," my voice trembled, "is my daughter-in-law. And if I am going to accuse her, I need there to be no doubt. None. Mr. Henderson closed the hood carefully, as if the car were a bomb that could still go off. Your daughter-in-law, Audrey— I nodded. A homeless man saw her. He saw her and another man here in the middle of the night messing with the car. Mr. Henderson shook his head in disbelief. My God, but why, what does she gain by— Everything. Tears began to roll down my cheeks. She gains everything. The inheritance, the properties, total control over my son. If I disappear, she keeps everything. Mr. Henderson cursed under his breath. He put away his tools with rough movements, furious. This is not going to stay like this, Mrs. Evelyn. I am not going to let anything happen to you. Nothing is going to happen to me, I said, wiping my tears with the back of my hand, because now I know what she is capable of doing. And I am not going to give her another chance. Mr. Henderson finished recording everything. He sent the videos to my cell phone, every cut wire, every angle of the melted bag, every inch of evidence. What are you going to do now? He asked me before leaving. I am going to meet with someone, a doctor who worked with James at the hospital, and afterwards, I am going to build a case so solid that not even the best lawyer in the world can defend her. Mr. Henderson put a hand on my shoulder. Mr. James would be proud of you. Those words broke me and rebuilt me at the same time. When he left, I stayed in the garage looking at that car that almost became my coffin, and something inside me changed forever. It wasn't just pain I felt anymore. It was fury, a cold, calculated, relentless fury. Audrey had tried to erase me from this world. She had tried to turn me into ashes to keep everything James and I built. But she made a fatal mistake. She underestimated me. She believed a 68-year-old widow would be easy to eliminate. She believed no one would listen to me. She believed she could get away with it. But she was about to discover that the most dangerous woman in the world is the one who has nothing left to lose. And I had just lost everything. I saved the videos. Later on, Mr. Henderson would present them to the police. Now I only had one mission left, to get justice. And I wouldn't stop until I saw her pay for every tear, every lie, every betrayal. The game was just beginning, and this time I would be making the rules. I had 3 hours before my meeting with Dr. Vance, 3 hours that I decided to use to find Skinny. He was the only person who had seen Audrey that night, the only witness to her crime. And I needed his full testimony, every detail, every word he could remember. Because if I was going to face her, I needed weapons, and witnesses are the best weapons. I left my house with the sun already high in the sky. I had my bag crossed over my shoulder, cash, and a determination that burned inside me like fire. I looked for him first on the corner where I'd seen him that morning. He wasn't there. I asked a street vendor selling corn, "Have you seen a skinny man with dirty clothes who is usually around here?" The vendor looked at me with suspicion. "What are you looking for him for?" "He saved my life. I want to thank him." His expression softened. "Sometimes I see him by the market or in the park near the benches at the back. Several of them sleep there." I thanked him and walked toward the market. My legs weren't as strong as before, but the urgency gave me strength. I passed the fruit stands, the meat, the bread. The smell of freshly made tortillas mixed with flowers and fish. And then I saw him. He was sitting on the ground, leaning against the back wall of the market with a plastic bag beside him. His head was down, eyes closed. For a moment I thought he was sleeping, but when I got close, he looked up. His eyes recognized me instantly. "Ma'am," he murmured, trying to stand up. "No, stay there." I crouched in front of him, ignoring the pain in my knees. "I came to find you." He blinked, confused. "Me? Yes, I need you to tell me everything you saw that night. Everything without leaving anything out." Skinny swallowed hard. His hands were shaking. "I already told you, ma'am. I saw your daughter-in-law and a man. But I need more. At what time exactly? What did that man look like? What else did they do?" He lowered his gaze, nervous. I don't want trouble. I took out my wallet and put five $500 bills in his hand. His eyes opened wide like plates. It is not for trouble. It is for justice. That money is yours. And there will be more if you help me stop her. He stared at the bills as if he couldn't believe they were real. Then he quickly put them in his pocket and took a deep breath. All right, I will tell you everything. Go ahead. It was about 2 a.m. I was there on the corner of your street. I always sleep there because there are fewer police to chase me away. I was half asleep when I heard a car parking near your house. I peeked out. It was a black car, elegant. 2 people got out, a woman and a man. What did the man look like? Tall. He was wearing a dark suit, short hair. I couldn't see his face well because he was wearing a cap, but he walked like someone used to giving orders. Do you understand me? With his back straight, without fear. I nodded, absorbing every word. And the woman, her I did recognize. I have seen her before at your house. It is your daughter-in-law. She was wearing black pants and a jacket with a hood, but I saw her well when she passed under the street lamp. It was her for sure. What did they do? They approached your car. The man opened the hood. I don't know how. Maybe he had tools. They were there for like 10 minutes. She was shining the light with her cell phone. He was putting his hands in the engine. They were talking quietly, but I managed to hear a little. What were they saying? Skinny closed his eyes, concentrating. She was saying, "Is it ready?" And he answered, "Yes, but you have to make sure she tries to start it several times. If not, it won't work." And she said, "She will. She is always stubborn." And then they laughed. My blood froze in my veins. Stubborn. She knew me. She knew that if my car didn't start the first time, I would insist. Once, twice, 3 times until it exploded. Anything else? My voice came out, barely as a thread. Yes, before leaving, she gave him something. An envelope. And the man said, "With this, we are even." Then they got into the car and left. Did you see the license plates? No, ma'am, it was very dark, but the car was a BMW, one of those new ones, black with chrome rims. I opened my purse and took out my cell phone. Could you recognize the man if you saw him again? Maybe, I don't know. Like I told you, I didn't see his face well. And if I show you photos, maybe. I started to think. Who was that man? An accomplice. A lover. Someone Audrey paid to do her dirty work. Skinny, I need you to do something for me. Something very important. He looked at me with those tired but attentive eyes. Tell me. I want you to come with me to a safe place. I am going to pay for a hotel room for you for a few days, and I need you to write down everything you just told me with every detail you remember. Can you do it? I don't write very well, ma'am. It doesn't matter, I will help you, but I need your testimony to be recorded, because the moment will come when you will have to repeat this in front of other people. Do you understand? He nodded slowly. In front of the police? Maybe. Or in front of a judge. Skinny went pale. Ma'am, I can't get involved in those things. I have a record petty theft, nothing serious, but if they see me in a court, nothing is going to happen to you. I put a hand on his shoulder. I promise you I am going to protect you, but I need you to help me. Because that woman didn't just try to kill me, she also killed my husband, and if we don't stop her, she will do it again. His eyes filled with something resembling compassion. Your husband was good to me. He treated me like a person, not like trash. Then help me get justice for him. There was a long silence. The noise of the market continued around us. Voices, laughter, the tapping of knives against wooden boards. But in that little corner, it was just him and me connected by a terrible truth. Finally, Skinny nodded. Okay, I will do it. I helped him stand up. He was lighter than I thought, pure skin and bones. I took him to a modest but clean hotel near downtown. I paid for a week. I bought him new clothes, soap, food. And that afternoon, sitting in the small room, smelling of detergent, we wrote his testimony together. Every word, every detail, every second of that cursed night. When we finished, I took a photo of him with my cell phone holding it in his hands, his signature at the bottom. "Keep it safe," I told him. "This paper can change everything." He folded it carefully and put it under the mattress. "Ma'am, do you really believe this will be of any use?" I looked him straight in the eye. "Skinny, you are the only person in the world who saw what she did. You are invisible to society, I know. But right now, you are the most important person in my life because you have the truth, and the truth always, always ends up winning." He smiled for the first time. A broken smile, but real. "Thank you for believing me, ma'am. Thank you for having the courage to speak." I left the hotel with a lighter heart. I had a witness. I had proof from the car, and in an hour I would have the answers about what happened at the hospital. Audrey had built her empire on lies, but I was about to tear it down piece by piece until nothing was left. I arrived at the coffee shop across from the hospital 15 minutes before 3. I sat at a table by the window from where I could see the entrance of St. Raphael. That white 5-story building, which once seemed like a place of hope to me, now looked like a mausoleum. Inside there, James had died. Inside there, Audrey had let him die. I ordered a coffee that I didn't drink. I just held it between my hands, feeling the heat of the disposable cup, trying to calm the trembling that wouldn't go away. At 3 o'clock sharp, a man entered the coffee shop. 50-something years old, graying hair, medical coat, under a gray jacket, round glasses, serious look. He searched for me with his eyes. When he saw me, he nodded. He approached my table and extended his hand. "Mrs. Montes, I am Dr. Vance. Thank you for coming." He sat in front of me, ordered a black coffee, and for a moment said nothing. He just looked at me, evaluating me, as if trying to decide if I was strong enough to hear what he had to say. Finally, he spoke. "I shouldn't be here. What I am going to tell you could cost me my job, maybe even my license. But I can't keep quiet anymore." My heart beat faster. "Tell me the truth, please." He took a thin folder out of his backpack. He put it on the table and opened it carefully. Inside were printed pages, medical studies charts. "Your husband arrived at the hospital on September 18th. He was complaining of dizziness, abdominal pain, nausea. We thought it was acute gastritis. We admitted him to hydrate him and run tests." I nodded. I already knew all that. During the first 2 days, his condition was stable. Uncomfortable, but stable. But then, he paused. He started to get worse. Fast. Too fast. What happened? His vital signs began to fail. Tachycardia, irregular blood pressure, mental confusion. And the strangest thing, his blood tests showed elevated levels of potassium much, much higher than normal. And what does that mean? Severe hyperkalemia can cause a massive cardiac arrest. But the weird thing is that he didn't have any medical reason to have those levels. He wasn't diabetic. He didn't have kidney problems. He wasn't taking medications that would justify it. I felt something cold run down my back. "Are you saying that?" "I am saying that someone could have administered potassium to him externally in high doses without anyone noticing." The coffee shop seemed to spin around me. How? I don't know. But I know who had unlimited access to his room. Who was with him the last hours of his life? Who was there when no one else could be? Audrey. He nodded slowly. "Your daughter-in-law." "Yes." I covered my mouth with my hands. The tears flowed without control. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. James hadn't died of a natural heart attack. They had murdered him, and I wasn't there to protect him. "Why didn't you say anything?" My voice came out broken, desperate. "Why didn't they investigate it?" Dr. Vance looked down, ashamed. "I tried. I talked to the hospital director. I showed him the tests. I told him something didn't add up, but he told me we couldn't make accusations without solid proof. That an autopsy needed the family's consent, and your daughter-in-law, she refused. The lawyer, Mr. Solis, advised that cremation would be the most dignified and sanitary option." Michael signed trusting her word. "What?" She said she didn't want to desecrate her father-in-law's body, that it was a lack of respect. That James would have wanted to rest in peace, and your son supported her. I closed my eyes. Michael. My own son had blocked the investigation without knowing it. So they cremated him, I whispered. Yes, and with that, any possibility of proving what happened was lost. I stayed silent. The noise of the coffee shop felt distant, unreal. Voices, cups, clinking the steam from the coffee machines. Everything felt like a dream I couldn't wake up from. Doctor, do you believe she did it? He looked me straight in the eye. Yes, I believe your daughter-in-law poisoned your husband. I can't prove it, but in 25 years of my career, I have seen many deaths, and this one was not natural. Tears rolled freely down my cheeks. How did she do it? It could have been with potassium supplements. They are easy to get sold without a prescription in normal doses. They are harmless, but in high doses mixed in food or drink, they are lethal. And the worst part, they leave very little trace, especially if the body is cremated. I felt empty, as if someone had ripped out my soul. He trusted her, I said with a trembling voice. James trusted everyone. It was his greatest virtue and his downfall. I am so sorry, Mrs. Montes. Can I keep these documents? He pushed the folder toward me. They are copies. Use them as you need. If this goes to trial, I will testify. I don't care what happens to me. Your husband deserves justice. I squeezed his hand tightly. Thank you. You don't know how much this means to me. When Dr. Vance left, I sat in that coffee shop for almost an hour. I could not move. I could not cry anymore. I was just there staring out the window, watching people entering and leaving the hospital. Worried families, sick, people walking slowly, doctors in a rush, and me, a 68-year-old widow carrying the weight of an unbearable truth. James had been murdered. My husband, the love of my life, the father of my children, had been slowly poisoned by the woman we trusted, the woman we called family. And worst of all, my son still did not believe me. Mark had called me paranoid. He told me to stop inventing things. He told me that Audrey was innocent. How do you tell a son that his wife is a murderer? How do you destroy his world to save the truth? I got up from the table. I paid the check. I went out to the street. The cold afternoon air hit my face, but I did not feel it. I walked aimlessly for a while. I passed in front of a church. I hesitated. I had not entered one in years, but something pushed me inside. The interior was almost empty. Just an older lady praying in the first row and the smell of incense floating in the air. I sat on a bench in the back and looked toward the altar. James I whispered, "I could not protect you, forgive me." The tears returned, silent, bitter. "But I swear to you by what I love most that she is going to pay. I swear it to you. Even if it costs me everything I have left, she is going to pay." I left the church with swollen eyes, but with something new in my chest. Purpose. It was no longer just pain that I felt. It was determination. Audrey had destroyed my family. She had killed my husband. She had tried to kill me. But she made a fatal mistake. She underestimated me. She thought that an older woman alone without power would be easy to eliminate. But she was wrong, because pain can break you, or it can turn you into something stronger than you ever imagined. And I had just decided that my pain was not going to destroy me. It was going to be my weapon. And with that weapon, I was going to get justice, even if it was the last thing I did in this life. That night, I did not sleep. I stayed awake at the dining room table, surrounded by papers, photos, bank documents, everything spread out like the pieces of a macabre puzzle, and me in the center trying to put together the complete picture of the betrayal. But I knew I could not do it alone. I needed professional help. Someone who knew how to move in the shadows, someone who could find what I could not see, and I knew the perfect person, Ralph Carter. He had been James's partner more than 15 years ago in the first construction projects, a brilliant, meticulous man with that rare ability to see what others ignore. But after a legal problem that almost ruined him, Ralph left the business world and dedicated himself to something else. Private investigation. James always said that Ralph had the nose of a bloodhound, and I needed exactly that. I called him at 7 in the morning. "Emily?" His voice sounded surprised. "How long has it been? I am so sorry about James. He was a great man." "Thank you, Ralph. I need to see you. It is urgent." There was a pause. "Are you okay?" "No, but I am going to be. Can you meet with me today? Tell me where." 2 hours later, we were sitting in a discreet restaurant downtown. Ralph arrived with a worn leather briefcase and that piercing look that had always intimidated me a little. 52 years old, short hair with gray at the temples, a 3-day beard, a dark suit without a tie. He sat across from me and went straight to the point. "What do you need?" I told him everything. Every word, every detail. The scream of the thin man, the cut cable, the bag with gasoline, the modified will, the rumors in town, the meeting with Dr. Vargas, the poisoning, the bank transfers. Ralph did not interrupt me a single time. He just listened, taking notes in a small notebook with a black pen. His eyes never stopped looking at me. When I finished, he closed the notebook and exhaled slowly. "This is serious, Emily. Very serious. I know. If what you say is true, your daughter-in-law is not only a thief, she is a murderer. That is why I need proof. Evidence that a judge cannot ignore. Evidence that forces my son to open his eyes." Ralph leaned back in the chair, thoughtful. "How much money do you have available?" "Whatever is necessary. Because this is not going to be cheap. We are going to need to trace bank accounts, get phone records, investigate her past, maybe hire surveillance. And everything has to be done with absolute discretion. If she finds out that you are investigating her, I know. She could disappear, or worse, try to kill me again." "Exactly." I took out a check that I had prepared that morning. $5,000. I put it on the table. "This is just the retainer." Ralph looked at the check. Then he looked at me. "Are you sure you want to do this? Because once we open this box, there is no turning back. What we find can change your life forever." My life already changed, Ralph. I already lost my husband. I already lost my son's trust. I almost lost my own life. I have nothing else to lose except my dignity, and I do not plan to give that to her. He smiled barely. A sad smile, but respectful. "James was right about you. He always said you were the stronger of the two." He took the check and put it away. "All right, I accept the case. But we are going to do this my way. Without emotions, only facts, only solid evidence." Agreed, agreed. During the following 10 days, Ralph worked in silence. I continued with my normal life, or at least pretending to. I went to the grocery store. I visited my sister. I tended to the garden. I smiled when it was necessary, but inside every second was a torture of waiting. Ralph called me every 2 days to update me. First call. I found something interesting. Audrey is not really named Audrey Miller. She changed her name 8 years ago. Her original name was Audrey Henderson, and she has a record. What kind of record? Minor fraud. 10 years ago, she was accused of scamming an older man in Florida. The case was closed because the man died before the trial. My blood ran cold. Died heart attack. At least, that is what the death certificate says. But the coincidences are starting to be too many. Do you not think second call? The transfers you found are not the only ones. There are more, many more. It matched what I had already found. $400,000 in total, $300,000 before his death, and $100,000 after, all made during the last year, all to accounts that Audrey controlled. But the interesting thing is that some of those transfers were made from his personal account after he was hospitalized. That is impossible. He was unconscious. Exactly. which means that someone had access to his banking passwords, and there is only one person who could have had them. Third call, I hired surveillance. Audrey has met 3 times in the last week with a man, same guy your witness described. Tall, dark suit, black BMW. I got photos. I am sending them to you. Minutes later, the photos arrived on my cell phone, and what I saw left me breathless. The man in the suit was Gerald Stone, a corporate lawyer, a specialist in inheritances and wills, and the same lawyer who was present the day of the reading of the will at the notary. Everything began to fit. Gerald had helped Audrey forge the documents, change the will, move the money, and probably he was the one who cut the cable of my car that night. She was not just a conspirator. It was a complete network. Fourth call, the most important one. Emily, I need you to come to my office. Now. I found something you have to see. I arrived in less than half an hour. Ralph was waiting for me with the computer on. On the screen were scanned documents. Look at this. He zoomed in on the image. It is the modified will, the one that was read at the notary. Yes, I already saw it. Now look at this. He opened another document. This is James's signature on old contracts. Look at the inclination of the J at the shape of the O at the space between the letters. I saw it. Now look at the signature on the modified will. The comparison was evident. It was not the same signature. It was good. Very good, almost perfect, but it was not identical. It is fake, I whispered. Correct. James never signed that will. Someone did it for him, and that someone is very professional. Probably Gerald. Lawyers know how to copy signatures. It is part of their forensic training. I felt my legs trembling. This is enough, right? We can go to the police with this. Ralph shook his head. It is a good start, but it is not enough for an arrest. We need more. We need a confession, or at least something that ties them directly to the crime. And how do we get that he looked at me with that intensity that gave me chills, setting a trap for them? My heart beat faster. What kind of trap? One that they cannot refuse. One where they feel safe, where they let their guard down, and where every word they say gets recorded. I smiled for the first time in days. Tell me what I have to do. And so began the final phase of my revenge. I was no longer just a widow looking for answers. I was a woman armed with evidence, with witnesses, with a plan. And Audrey was about to discover that the worst mistake you can make in life is to underestimate someone who has nothing left to lose. Because when a woman decides to fight for her truth, there is no lie strong enough to stop her. And I was just getting started. The plan was simple, but dangerous. Ralph designed it with surgical precision. Every detail, every movement, every word that I would have to say. You have to make her feel like she won, he explained in his office. That you are no longer a threat, that you gave up. Only then will she lower her guard. And how do I do that? Calling her, inviting her to dinner, telling her that you want to make peace, that you are tired of fighting, that you want to sign the distribution of the shares in peace and move on with your life. The mere idea of faking kindness with her turned my stomach. I do not know if I can. Ralph put a hand on my shoulder. I know it is difficult, but it is the only way. If you confront her directly, she will run. Or worse, she will hire better lawyers and bury everything. We need her to feel safe to speak. And when she speaks, we will catch her. I took a deep breath. And the cameras I am going to install, 3. One in the living room, hidden in the wall clock. Another in the dining room in the decorative plant. And one more in the kitchen, just in case. High-definition audio, HD video. Everything will go directly to an encrypted server. Even if they destroy the cameras, the recording will be safe. And if she does not say anything incriminating, she will. People like Audrey cannot resist bragging, especially when they think they won. You just have to provoke her, subtly ask her casual questions, let her ego do the rest. He gave me a list of key phrases that I had to mention during dinner. Phrases like, "James always trusted you. I never understood why he changed so much in his last months." Sometimes I wonder what really happened at the hospital. The car. What luck that I did not start it that day. Each one designed to sow doubt to provoke a reaction so that Audrey could not avoid defending herself or, better yet, justifying herself. I practiced in front of the mirror for 2 days. Kind smile, voice tired but reconciling, gestures of defeat. It had to be perfect because if she suspected something, everything would fall apart. Finally, on a Thursday afternoon, I called her. My hand was shaking when I dialed her number. Emily, her voice sounded surprised. "Audrey, hello. How are you? Good. And you, I did not expect your call. I know, I need to speak with you. And with Mark. But mostly with you." There was a cautious pause. "What is it about I want you to come to dinner at my house? This Saturday. I need to make peace. I am tired of all this pain, of the fights, of the mistrust. James would not have wanted this." I could hear her mental gears turning on the other end of the line. "Are you sure?" "Totally. I want to sign the pending papers. Close this chapter and move on. We all deserve peace." Do you not think her voice softened? She thought she had won. "That seems perfect to me, Emily. Mark is going to be happy to hear this. He has been very worried about you." "I know. I am also worried about him. About all of us. I expect you at 8. I will prepare something special. We will be there." I hung up and released the air that I did not know I was holding. Ralph, who had been listening from the other room, entered with a smile. Perfect. She fell for it completely. Now we just need everything to go well on Saturday. It will go well. Trust the process. On Friday, Ralph arrived early to install the cameras. He worked for 3 hours adjusting angles, testing audio, making sure everything remained invisible but functional. When he finished, he showed me how it looked from his laptop. The living room, the dining room, the kitchen, everything in split screen, crisp image, clear audio. Remember, he told me before leaving, keep calm. Do not accuse her of anything. Just let her talk. The truth always comes out when people feel comfortable. Saturday arrived like a silent storm. I spent the day cooking. I made pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, Mark's favorite dessert, apple pie. I set the table with the embroidered tablecloth that we used on special occasions. Candles, fresh flowers. Everything had to look authentic. At 8 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. I opened the door with a smile that hurt my soul. Mark entered first. He looked tired but hopeful. He hugged me tight. "Thank you for this, Mom. Thank you for coming, my love." Audrey entered behind him, elegant as always, tight black dress, heels, perfect hair, that smile that I now recognized as pure falseness. "Emily, you look so lovely, and it smells delicious. Thank you, honey. Come in, sit down." We sat at the table. I served the food. We talked about trivial things at the beginning, the weather, the traffic, the news. Mark seemed relaxed, happy to see us together without fighting. Audrey, on the other hand, was watching me, still cautious, still evaluating. Then while I was pouring more wine, I dropped the first key phrase. "You know, Audrey, despite everything I know, that James trusted you a lot." She smiled. "He was a wonderful man, very generous." He was. Sometimes too much. I paused. I never understood why he changed so much in his last months. He became so distant. Audrey took a sip of wine, thoughtful. I think he was tired. The work, the stress. You know how business is. Maybe. But it was strange, especially when he started getting sick. The doctors never found a clear explanation. I looked her directly in the eyes. She held my gaze without blinking. Sometimes life is like that, Emily. Unfair. Inexplicable. I suppose so. I wiped my mouth with the napkin. I am glad you were with him at the hospital. I would not have been able to bear him dying alone. Someone had to be there. Her voice had an almost proud tone. Someone who knew how to take good care of him. Mark interrupted, uncomfortable. Mom, maybe we should not talk about this now. You are right, my love. Sorry. I smiled. It is just that sometimes I wonder what would have happened if things had been different. Audrey leaned forward with bright eyes. Different, how I do not know. If I had been there, if I had insisted that more doctors check him, yes. I made a dramatic pause. If I had started the car that day, the silence that followed was electric. Audrey blinked, only once. But it was enough. What car, she asked, but her voice sounded forced. My car. A few weeks ago, it had a strange mechanical problem. The mechanic said it was almost as if someone had sabotaged it. I laughed softly. But that would be ridiculous, right? She did not answer immediately. Her fingers tightened around the wine glass. Ridiculous, she repeated finally. But her smile no longer reached her eyes. And I knew in that moment that I had her. That every word that came out of her mouth from now on would be recorded, and that the trap had just closed. I just had to wait for her to hang herself with her own tongue, because the truth always finds a way to come out, especially when you push it with the right questions. The dinner continued for another hour. I continued with my role of the tired and reconciling widow. Audrey, on the other hand, began to show cracks, small ones, almost imperceptible, but they were there. She touched her neck nervously. She drank wine faster than normal. She looked toward the door every so often as if she wanted to escape. But most importantly, she talked too much. She started to brag, to justify herself, to explain things that no one had asked her. James asked me to take charge of his accounts because he trusted me, she said while cutting a piece of pie. He said that I had a better head for numbers than Mark. No offense, love. Mark smiled uncomfortably. Don't be offended, Mom, but it is true. I was always terrible with finances. I know my sweet boy. I looked at Audrey. And it is admirable that James trusted you so much, although I must confess that it surprised me that he moved so much money without telling me anything. She left the fork on the plate. They were investments, opportunities that could not wait. He understood that, of course, although... I paused as if remembering something. The bank called me a few days ago. They said there were transfers after James was in the hospital, unconscious. How strange, right? Audrey went rigid. They must be wrong. Banks make mistakes all the time. Maybe I smiled sweetly, or maybe someone had his passwords. The silence fell like an anvil. Mark looked at us confused, feeling the tension but without understanding its origin. Audrey, on the other hand, stared at me. Her eyes were no longer sweet. They were hard, calculating. Emily, where are you going with all this nowhere, honey? I'm just trying to understand how things worked. To close this chapter in peace, as we said. She did not answer. She just took her glass of wine and drained it in one gulp. Then I decided to throw the final punch. You know, I met someone a few weeks ago, a homeless man. He told me a very interesting story about a woman and a man in a black suit who were near my car one night. The glass almost fell from her hands. What? Yes. What a coincidence, right? Just the night before, I discovered the mechanical problem. Audrey stood up abruptly. The chair screeched against the floor. I do not have to listen to this. Mark, we are leaving. But Mark had also stood up looking at me with a mixture of confusion and anger. Mom, what is happening? What are you talking about? Ask your wife, I said with a calm but firm voice. This is ridiculous. Audrey grabbed her purse. Your mother is paranoid, Mark. I already told you, she needs professional help. Paranoid. I got up slowly, keeping my calm. Do you know what is funny, Audrey, that a paranoid person would not have this? I took out my cell phone and put the photos Ralph had sent me on the table. Audrey with Gerald Stone, in restaurants and parking lots in her car. Mark's eyes opened wide. What? What is this, your wife, with the lawyer who modified your father's will? The same lawyer who was present at the reading. The same man who, according to my witness, helped her sabotage my car. Audrey stepped back pale. That does not prove anything. Gerald is a colleague, a friend who helped you steal $400,000, a friend who forged James's signature, a friend who tried to kill me. You are lying. Do you want me to call the doctor who attended to your father-in-law? The one who found abnormal levels of potassium in his blood, the one who suspected he was poisoned? Mark took a step back as if he had been hit. No, it cannot be. Audrey turned toward him with fake tears sprouting immediately. Love, do not believe her. She is inventing everything. She is jealous. She has always hated me. But Mark looked at her differently now, as if he were seeing her for the first time. For an instant, her voice trembled. I just wanted them to respect me. I was always the guest, never the owner. Then she hardened again. Your father was an idiot. Is it true? His voice came out broken. Did you poison my father? No. Of course not. This is madness. Answer me. His scream resonated through the whole house. Audrey opened her mouth. Then she closed it. Her eyes moved from me to Mark, looking for an exit that did not exist. And then she did what she could have done. She smiled, a cold, calculating smile empty of any pretense of innocence. Your father was an idiot, she said with a cutting voice, a foolish old man who signed whatever it was as long as they made him feel important. It was so easy to manipulate him that it was almost funny. Mark stepped back as if he had been stabbed. My God. And you know what? Audrey continued now without restraint. I regret only one thing, not having finished the job with her too. She pointed at me with contempt. But do not worry, there is still time. She took something out of her purse, a small knife, silver sharp. Mark screamed. Audrey, no. But she had already lunged toward me. I did not have time to think, only to react. I moved to the side. The knife passed, grazing my arm, tearing the sleeve of my blouse. And then the front door burst open. Ralph came running in, followed by 2 uniformed police officers. On the ground, dropped the weapon, shouted one of them, while pointing at Audrey. Ralph, without losing his cool, showed the agents that the cameras were transmitting everything in real time to the secure server. Audrey stood paralyzed. The knife fell from her hands. Her face went from hate to panic in a second. The police subdued her, handcuffed her. While they dragged her toward the door, she screamed. This is a trap, she provoked me. They set a trap for me. Ralph approached me. Are you okay? I nodded, still trembling. You recorded it all right. Every word, every movement is on the server. Irrefutable. Mark was sitting on the floor with his head in his hands, sobbing like a child. I knelt beside him and hugged him. I am sorry, son. I am so sorry. I did not know. His voice was a broken whisper. Mom, forgive me. I did not believe you. I thought you were... Shh. It is over. It is over. The police took Audrey away. Her screams faded in the distance. Ralph approached with a serious expression. They are going to arrest Gerald Stone, too. With the recordings and the bank evidence, both are going to spend many years in prison. And the fake will be invalidated. Everything will return to how it should have been from the beginning. The properties, the money, everything comes back to you and your children. I closed my eyes. The relief hit me like a wave. It was not joy that I felt. It was justice. James could rest in peace, and I finally could breathe. The nightmare had ended, but I knew that the wounds would take a long time to heal. Because recovering your life is one thing. Recovering your son's trust is another. And that night, hugging Mark on the floor of my dining room, I knew that the real work was just beginning. Not the work of revenge, but of reconstruction. And that I would discover later was the hardest of all. Several weeks passed since that night of the trap. Time was no longer measured in days, but in hearings and statements. The following months were a hurricane of lawyers, statements, hearings, and papers. Audrey was formally accused of fraud, forgery of documents, attempted homicide, and although they could not prove it completely because of the cremation of the body conspiracy in the death of James, Gerald Stone, the accomplice lawyer, was arrested in his office 2 days later. The evidence was overwhelming. The recordings, the bank transfers, and the testimony of the thin man, the homeless man, who saw everything sealed the guilt of both. They had no defense. The trial lasted 4 months. I attended every hearing sitting on the same bench, in the same dark clothes, staring at Audrey every time she entered the room handcuffed. She never returned my gaze. Her lawyer tried everything. He alleged temporary insanity, then psychological manipulation, then that I had provoked her, that everything was self-defense. But the recordings did not lie. The cameras had no bias, and the jury, 12 people who did not know her, saw the same thing I had seen from the beginning. A woman without scruples, capable of anything for money. The day of the verdict, the room was full. Relatives, journalists, curious people attracted by the scandal. Mark was sitting next to me, pale with his hands clasped on his knees. He had lost so much weight in those months that he looked like another person. When the judge asked the jury for their verdict, the silence was absolute. "Have you reached a verdict?" "Yes, Your Honor." "How do you find the defendant, Audrey Henderson, on the charges of fraud, forgery, and attempted homicide guilty?" "On all counts." I heard Mark let out a trembling sigh. I felt nothing, just a strange emptiness, as if something inside of me had turned off and could not be turned back on. The judge struck the gavel. The sentence will be 18 years in prison without the possibility of parole before serving at least 12 years. 18 years. Audrey was 32. She would get out at 50 if she got out at all. I saw her stand up, handcuffed, escorted by 2 officers. For a moment, she turned her head toward me. Our eyes met. There was no rage in her look. There was no regret. Just emptiness. And then they took her out of the room. Gerald Stone received 15 years. His career destroyed. His reputation in ruins. After the sentence, Ralph was waiting for me in the courthouse hallway. "Justice was done," he said. I nodded, but I could not smile. "Why do I not feel better?" He put a hand on my shoulder. "Because justice does not erase the pain, Emily. It only closes the circle. The rest you have to do yourself." He was right. 2 weeks later, the fake will was officially annulled. The 3 properties that Audrey had stolen were returned to my name. The $400,000 she had moved were traced and recovered. Everything that James built during his life returned to where it always should have been, with his legitimate family. But the money no longer mattered to me. What mattered to me was something else. A Sunday afternoon, Mark came to visit me. He brought flowers, white lilies, my favorites. We sat on the terrace under the soft afternoon sun with the sound of birds in the background. For a long time, we did not speak. Finally, he broke the silence. "Mom, I am never going to be able to ask for enough forgiveness. You do not need to do it. Yes, I need to." His voice broke. "I failed you. I failed Dad. I let that woman destroy everything. And the worst is that I did not believe you. I called you paranoid. I turned my back on you when you needed me most. I put my hand over his. You were in love. And love blinds. I know better than anyone. It is no excuse. No, but it is an explanation." I looked him in the eyes. "Son, Audrey did not deceive only you. She deceived us all. She was very good at what she did. Too good. And you just wanted to be happy. There is nothing wrong with that." Tears rolled down his cheeks. "How can you forgive me because you are my son, and because I know your father would have forgiven you too? He loved you, and wherever he is, I know he just wants to see you happy." Mark collapsed. He cried like he had not done in years, and I hugged him, like when he was a child, like when he fell and came running to seek comfort in my arms, because that never changes. A son will always be your son, no matter how much time passes. No matter how many mistakes he makes, a mother's love has no conditions. That same month, I made a decision. I sold 2 of the properties that Audrey had tried to steal. With that money, I created a trust fund for my grandson, Mark's son, who was barely 6 years old. an innocent boy who had lost his grandfather and would now grow up without a mother. I wanted to ensure that he was protected, that he had a future, that Audrey's lies did not ruin his life too. The rest of the money I donated. Part went to St. Ralph's Hospital with the condition that they improve their security protocols for vulnerable patients. Another part went to a shelter for the homeless, because the thin man had saved my life. And if he, someone invisible to society, could be my guardian angel, then there were thousands like him who deserved a chance. I did not do it for recognition. I did it because James would have done the same. And because I finally understood something that had taken me a lifetime to learn. True wealth is not in what you possess. It is in what you do with what you have. It is in how you treat people who cannot give you anything in return. It is in sleeping peacefully knowing that you did the right thing, even if no one was watching you. One afternoon while organizing James's study, I found a letter. It was hidden inside one of his favorite books. A letter he never sent, dated 2 weeks before he died. It said, "Emily, if you are reading this, it is because something happened to me. I need you to know that I made mistakes. I trusted the wrong person. I let someone enter too much into my life, into our finances, into our family. And now I am afraid of what might happen. If something happens to me, please do not trust anyone. Investigate. Fight. Because I know you are stronger than you think. You always have been. I love you, and I am sorry." The letter fell from my hands. James knew. On some level, he knew that Audrey was dangerous, and he had tried to warn me, but he did not arrive in time. I sat in his chair, surrounded by his books, by his smell that still permeated the leather of the desk, and I cried. Not of sadness, but of closure. Because finally I could tell him, "It is done, my love. I already did what I had to do. I already defended you. I already defended us. Now you can rest." And I felt for the first time since his death that he really was resting. That justice, although late, although incomplete, had arrived, and that I, a 68-year-old woman who had been underestimated, betrayed, almost murdered, had won. Not with rage, not with revenge, but with dignity. And that, I discovered, was the most powerful victory of all. 6 months after the trial, a December morning, I woke up with a need I could not ignore. I had to see him, the thin man, the man who, without knowing it, had changed the course of everything, the man who, with a single desperate scream, had saved my life and unleashed justice. I had not seen him in a while. After the trial, I had gotten him a job at a small cleaning company. I had paid for a modest room in a boarding house. I had given him money for clothes, food, medicine, but I had never said thank you. Not really, not in the way he deserved. I looked for him for 2 days. He was not at his job. He was not in his room. No one had seen him. And then a cold afternoon I found him, in the same place where everything started, the corner of my street, sitting against the wall with the same ragged clothes as always despite everything I had given him. I approached slowly. He looked up and recognized me. "Mrs. Emily. Hey, Slim, I have been looking for you." He smiled with sadness. "I am sorry, it is just... I could not stay in the room. I could not continue at the job. I do not fit in there. The street is my home. It always has been." I sat next to him. I ignored the looks of the people passing by. I ignored the cold of the concrete. I ignored everything except him. "I did not come to scold you. I came to thank you." He shook his head. "You have nothing to thank. I have everything to thank." I took an envelope out of my purse. Without you, I would be dead. Without your scream, without your bravery, Audrey would have gotten away with it. That is why I want to give you this. I extended the envelope. He opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a check, $5,000. His eyes filled with tears. "Ma'am, I cannot accept this. Yes, you can, and you will, because you earned it. Do whatever you want with that money. Travel, rest, or donate it if you want, but take it. Because it is yours, because you saved a life, and that has no price." He pressed the check against his chest, sobbing in silence. "It was not just my merit," he said between tears. "It was your husband. He spoke to me that night." I stood motionless. What I dreamed it, clearly. I was asleep on that corner, and suddenly I saw him, standing in front of me, with a gray suit, smiling. He told me, "Take care of my wife. She is in danger. Do not let her start the car." And when I woke up, you were there getting into the car, and I screamed. I do not know why, I just screamed. Tears rolled freely down my cheeks. "James," I whispered, "he loved you very much, ma'am. You could feel that in the dream. Very much." I looked at the sky. The gray winter clouds moved slowly. The air smelled of approaching rain. "Thank you, James," I said in a low voice. "Thank you for watching over me. Thank you for sending me an angel when I needed it most." The thin man wiped his tears with the dirty sleeve of his jacket. "Ma'am, do you believe in those things? In dreams that the dead watch over us?" I looked him in the eyes. Before I did not believe. I thought everything was chance, coincidences. But now I know there is something else. Something we cannot see, but that is there, taking care of us, guiding us. James sent me to you, and you saved me. That is not a coincidence. That is love. Love that transcends death. We sat there for a while longer in silence, just two people connected by an impossible story, by a scream that changed everything. Finally, I got up. "Take care, Slim, and if one day you need something, anything, look for me. I am always going to be here for you. The same to you, ma'am, even though I do not have much to give. You already gave me everything. You gave me my life." I walked back to my house with my heart lighter than it had been in months. When I arrived, I sat on the terrace, the same place where James and I used to drink coffee on Sundays, where we planned trips we never took, where we dreamed of growing old together, and although he was no longer there physically, I felt his presence. In the wind that moved the leaves of the bougainvillea tree, in the song of the birds that he loved so much, in the warmth of the sun that sneaked between the clouds, I closed my eyes and spoke. "You can rest now, my love. Everything is fine now. Mark is healing. Our grandson is protected. Audrey paid for what she did. And I am at peace. Thank you for taking care of me. Thank you for not leaving me alone. Thank you for loving me so much that you found a way to save me even from where you are. I love you. I will always love you until we meet again." I opened my eyes, and just at that moment, a white butterfly landed on the edge of the table. It stayed there motionless, as if it were looking at me. And then it flew high toward the sky. I smiled because I knew it was him, saying goodbye, telling me that finally he could rest. And I, a 68-year-old woman who had lost her husband, who had been betrayed by her family, who had been seconds away from dying, I had survived, not only physically, but with my dignity intact, with my self-love recovered, with my truth defended. And although the road had been painful, although the scars still hurt, I knew something with absolute certainty. It was worth it. Because the truth is always worth it. Because justice, although slow, always arrives. And because a woman who decides to defend what is hers, what is right, what is just, that woman is unstoppable. And I had just discovered that I had always been that woman. I just needed them to take everything away from me to realize it. My love has gone at last. This story touched my heart in a way I never imagined, because it reminded me that no matter how old you are, no matter how many times you have been underestimated, no matter how much pain you carry, you always have the power to get up to fight for your truth, to reclaim your dignity. And have you ever had to face a family betrayal? Did you ever have to defend yourself when no one believed you? Leave me your comment. Tell me your story. Tell me where you are watching me from. Because every story matters. Every voice counts. And together we form a community of people who do not give up. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something, if it left you thinking, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe to keep sharing real-life stories that remind you that you are never, never alone. Because true wealth is not in what you possess, but in what you do not allow them to take from you. And the most valuable thing you have is your dignity. Never, never sell it. See you in the next story. With love, your storyteller who never gives up.